I was 23 when this happened. At the time, I lived alone in a small rental house just outside of Columbus, Ohio. It wasn't a bad neighborhood exactly, but it also wasn't the kind of place where people walked around late at night. Most of the houses were older, close together, with long driveways and dim yellow porch lights that barely lit anything. After around 10 at night, the entire street usually went dead quiet. No cars. No people. Nothing except the occasional barking dog somewhere in the distance. I worked late shifts at a warehouse about 20 minutes away, so my routine usually had me getting home close to midnight. Most nights I'd microwave something cheap, sit on the couch for an hour watching YouTube, then go to sleep. It was repetitive, but I liked it that way. Nothing unexpected ever happened there until the night someone knocked on my front door at 1:17 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV still on. The knock woke me instantly. It wasn't loud banging. Just 3 slow knocks. Calm. Controlled. I opened my eyes and looked around the dark living room while my heart adjusted from being asleep to suddenly awake. The TV was playing some infomercial with the volume low enough that I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Then the knocking happened again. 3 more slow knocks. I sat up and looked toward the front window beside the door. The blinds were closed, but I could see the faint outline of someone standing outside from the porch light shining behind them. At first I thought maybe it was a neighbor needing help or someone's car broke down nearby. But then I looked at the clock on the cable box. 1:17 a.m. Nobody knocks on doors at that hour unless something is wrong. I stayed still for a few seconds listening. The person outside didn't say anything. No. Hello? No explanation, just silence. Another set of knocks came a minute later. This time a little harder. I got up quietly and walked to the window without turning on any lights. I peeled one blind down just enough to look outside. There was a man standing on my porch. He looked to be maybe mid-30s, wearing a dark hoodie with the hood up despite it being warm outside. I couldn't see his face clearly because he was looking down toward the porch floor. What immediately felt strange was that he wasn't moving at all. Most people waiting at a door shift around or glance at windows. This guy stood completely still like a statue. I cracked the front window slightly and asked, "Can I help you?" The man slowly lifted his head toward the sound of my voice. Even in the darkness, I could tell something about him felt off immediately. His expression looked empty. Not angry or scared. Just blank. He stepped closer to the door and spoke softly. "I need to use your phone." His voice sounded calm, but there was something unnatural about the way he said it. Like he had rehearsed the sentence beforehand. I told him I didn't feel comfortable opening the door but asked if he needed me to call someone for him. He didn't answer right away. He just stared toward the window. Then he said, "My car broke down." I glanced toward the street, but I didn't see any car parked nearby. The road outside was completely empty. "Where's your car?" I asked. The man paused for maybe 3 seconds too long before pointing vaguely toward the end of the street behind him. "Down there." Something about the delay bothered me. I told him I'd call roadside assistance if he wanted. Again silence. Then he stepped even closer until he was right in front of the door. "Please open the door." The way he said it made my stomach tighten instantly. It didn't sound desperate. It sounded flat. Like he expected me to do it. I remember gripping the edge of the blinds harder while trying to decide what to do. Every instinct in my body was telling me not to unlock that door. I told him through the window, "Sorry man, I can't do that." For a few seconds neither of us moved. Then he lowered his head again and took one slow step backward off the porch. I thought maybe that was the end of it. Maybe he'd leave and go bother someone else. But instead of walking away, he turned his head slightly toward the side of my house, toward the narrow path that led to my backyard. That's when the fear really hit me. Before I could say anything else, the man calmly walked off the porch and disappeared around the side of my house into the darkness. I immediately locked the deadbolt even though it was already locked. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my neck. I grabbed my phone and stood there listening. At first there was nothing. Then I heard the faint crunch of footsteps moving along the gravel path beside the house. Slow footsteps. Not running. Not sneaking. Just walking calmly toward the backyard. I backed away from the front door and turned off the TV completely. The house became dead silent. I could hear every tiny noise now. The refrigerator humming. The ticking clock in the kitchen. Then another sound came from the back of the house. A soft metallic rattle. My back gate. I suddenly realized something horrifying. The gate leading into my backyard had been broken for weeks and didn't latch properly. The footsteps stopped for a moment. Then I heard the gate creak open slowly. I stood frozen in the living room staring toward the dark hallway that led to the back door, while every possible worst-case scenario started running through my head. Then came 3 slow knocks on the back door. The sound of those knocks on the back door made every hair on my arms stand up instantly. They were softer than before somehow, almost polite, but hearing them from the rear of the house felt completely different. It felt personal now. I stood in the middle of the living room barely breathing while staring down the dark hallway toward the kitchen. The back door was just beyond it, near the laundry room. Another 3 knocks came a few seconds later. Calm. Evenly spaced. Whoever this guy was, he wasn't drunk or panicked. He was patient. That scared me more than anything. I grabbed my phone and finally dialed 911. My hands were shaking badly enough that I almost dropped it while pressing the numbers. The operator answered quietly, asking what my emergency was. I tried keeping my voice low as I explained there was a strange man outside my house who had moved to the backyard after I refused to open the front door. While I was talking, the operator asked if the man had threatened me. I said no, but I told her something felt seriously wrong. Another knock interrupted me. This time louder. The operator asked if I could safely look outside and give a description. I moved slowly toward the kitchen, keeping every light off. The moonlight coming through the back window barely lit the room enough to see shapes. My backyard was fenced in with old wooden panels that leaned slightly inward from age. The grass hadn't been cut in 2 weeks. Near the back door was a small motion light that only worked half the time. Of course, tonight it wasn't on. I crouched near the window over the sink and carefully peeked outside through the blinds. At first I didn't see him. Then I noticed a dark shape standing directly beside the back door, just out of view of the small window. He was pressed against the wall of the house. Waiting. I ducked down immediately and whispered to the operator that he was still there. She told me officers were on the way and asked me to stay hidden. Then something happened that made my stomach completely drop. I heard the doorknob slowly turn. The sound was quiet but unmistakable. He was trying the back door. Very gently at first, like he didn't want to make noise. I backed away from the kitchen as the knob turned again, harder this time. The deadbolt held. The operator heard it through the phone and told me to stay calm. Then came silence. Complete silence for maybe 20 seconds. Long enough that I started wondering if he had walked away. That's when a loud bang hit the back door so hard the entire wall shook slightly. I actually jumped backward. Another bang followed immediately after. Not enough to break the door, but enough to let me know he was no longer pretending to be harmless. I ran back toward the living room while the operator told me officers were only a few minutes away. The banging stopped again, and for a moment I thought maybe hearing me move had scared him off. Then I heard footsteps inside the backyard moving quickly across the grass toward the side gate again. I rushed to the front window and peeked through the blinds just in time to see the man reappear from the side of the house. But he wasn't leaving. He walked straight to my driveway and stood beside my car. He looked directly toward the house for several seconds before slowly reaching into the pocket of his hoodie. I genuinely thought he was pulling out a weapon. Instead, he took out what looked like a phone. He lifted it to his ear while continuing to stare at my house. Then, after maybe 10 seconds, he lowered it and slid it back into his pocket. A second later, headlights turned onto my street. A police cruiser. The man noticed it instantly. He didn't run though. That's another thing I'll never forget. Most criminals panic when cops show up. This guy just calmly walked down the driveway toward the sidewalk like nothing had happened. The police car stopped beside him before he could leave. One officer got out and started talking to him while another walked toward my house. I opened the door once the officer identified himself. My hands were still shaking from adrenaline while I explained everything. The officer outside questioned the man for maybe 5 minutes before eventually placing him in the back of the cruiser. I remember feeling immediate relief seeing that happen. Finally, it felt over. But then the officer standing in my living room asked me something that made the situation much worse. He asked, "You said he claimed his car broke down?" I told him yes. The officer looked toward his partner outside before saying, "There's no vehicle registered to him anywhere nearby." Apparently the man had no ID on him either. No wallet. No keys. Nothing except an old flip phone in his pocket that barely worked. The officer told me they detained him because of the attempted forced entry, but they still didn't fully understand what he was doing there. Before leaving, the officer advised me to keep my doors locked and call immediately if I saw the man again after his release. I barely slept the rest of that night. Every tiny noise outside made me look toward the windows. By morning I convinced myself the whole thing was over. Just some unstable guy wandering around late at night. Around noon, I stepped outside to inspect the backyard. The grass near the fence was flattened where he'd walked through. The back door had fresh scrape marks near the handle from where he'd tried forcing it open. But what unsettled me most was something I noticed beside my bedroom window on the side of the house. Footprints. Several of them. Right beneath the window. I stood there staring at them while trying to process what I was seeing. My bedroom window was nowhere near either door. There'd been no reason for him to walk there unless he'd been looking inside the house before he ever knocked. Then I noticed something else sitting in the grass near the foundation beneath the window. A cigarette butt. Still fresh. Like it had only been there a few hours. Which meant the man may have been outside my house watching long before I woke up to the knocking. And that wasn't even the part that terrified me most. The truly horrifying part came later that night when I got a call back from the police station. The officer asked me one question immediately. "Are you absolutely sure you never opened the door for him at any point?" The question caught me completely off guard. I remember gripping my phone tighter and saying, "Yeah. I never opened it." The officer went quiet for a second before responding carefully. "Okay. We just needed to confirm something." I asked him what he meant, but he hesitated like he wasn't sure how much he should say. Eventually he told me the man they detained had been acting strangely during questioning. Apparently, after sitting silently for almost an hour, he suddenly asked one of the officers, "Did he see the inside of the house?" The officer said it bothered them because the man kept repeating versions of the same question. Did I open the door? Did he get inside? Did I see him clearly? None of it made sense. The police eventually identified him through fingerprints. He had a record from another state for trespassing and attempted burglary years earlier. Nothing violent, but enough to concern them. They held him overnight before transferring him to county jail because of the attempted break-in at my back door. Hearing that should have made me feel safer, but somehow it didn't. I kept thinking about the footprints under my bedroom window and the cigarette butt. The idea that he may have been standing outside watching me sleep before knocking made my skin crawl. For the next few days, I barely relaxed at all. Every night I double-checked every lock in the house multiple times. I started leaving lights on in different rooms before bed because darkness suddenly felt dangerous. Sleep became difficult too. Every little sound outside would wake me instantly. The house itself even started feeling different. Smaller somehow. Less safe. 3 nights after the incident, I got home from work around 11:30 p.m. I remember feeling exhausted because I'd barely slept all week. My street looked completely normal when I pulled into the driveway. Quiet houses. Porch lights. Nothing unusual. But as I walked toward my front door, something on the porch caught my attention immediately. A cigarette butt sitting near the welcome mat. Same brand as the one I found beneath my bedroom window. I froze right there on the porch staring at it. I hadn't smoked a day in my life, and none of my friends smoked either. I looked around the dark street, suddenly feeling exposed standing outside alone. My first thought was that maybe someone random had walked through my yard again. But deep down I knew it wasn't random. I hurried inside, locked the door, and checked every room in the house even though I already knew nobody was there. Then I called the police again. An officer came out maybe 40 minutes later. He looked at the cigarette butt and told me there wasn't much they could do unless the guy actually returned. He also informed me the man had bonded out of jail earlier that afternoon. Hearing that instantly made my chest tighten. The officer suggested maybe staying with family for a few nights if I felt unsafe. I told him I'd think about it, but the truth was I didn't really have anywhere nearby to go. My parents lived 2 states away. So I stayed. Around 2 a.m. that same night, I woke up needing water. The house was completely dark except for the digital clock glowing beside the couch. I walked quietly into the kitchen half asleep and grabbed a glass from the cabinet. As I filled it at the sink, I happened to glance toward the backyard window. At first my tired brain didn't fully process what I was seeing. Then my stomach dropped so hard it physically hurt. Someone was standing at the back fence. Perfectly still. Watching the house. The figure was mostly hidden in darkness, but I could make out the shape clearly enough. Tall. Hooded sweatshirt. I accidentally dropped the glass into the sink, and the sound made the figure move instantly. Not toward the house. Away from it. The person turned and disappeared behind the fence line within seconds. I ran to the living room window trying to catch another glimpse outside, but the street was empty. No cars. No movement. Nothing. I called 911 again while checking every door lock in the house. Police searched the area but found nobody. One officer suggested maybe it wasn't the same man. But I knew it was. Nobody accidentally stands motionless outside someone's fence at 2 in the morning. After that night, I bought cheap security cameras online and installed them myself around the house. One faced the driveway. One faced the backyard. Another covered the front porch. For about a week nothing happened. I slowly started convincing myself maybe the cameras scared him off. Then one Friday night, I finally decided to watch a movie and relax for the first time since everything started. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the backyard camera. My entire body tensed immediately. I opened the app expecting maybe a raccoon or stray cat. Instead, the live camera feed showed a man standing directly behind my house near the back door. Just standing there staring at the camera. Even through the grainy night vision image, I recognized the hoodie instantly. My hands went numb. The man slowly stepped closer to the camera until his face filled almost the entire screen. For the first time, I got a clear look at him. His expression was completely blank. No anger. No emotion at all. Then he smiled slightly. Not a normal smile either. It looked forced and unnatural. Like someone pretending to know how smiling works. I immediately called 911 while keeping my eyes locked on the live feed. The man continued staring into the camera for another few seconds before suddenly reaching upward. The screen went black. He had ripped the camera down. I heard movement outside almost immediately after that. Footsteps across the backyard. Fast this time. Then came 3 loud knocks on the back door again. Harder than before. Much harder. I backed away while talking to the dispatcher, but then another sound came from the front of the house too. Knocking. Someone was at the front door at the exact same time. My blood went cold instantly because there was no possible way the same person could be at both doors. Then the dispatcher said something that made the entire situation even worse. She asked, "Sir, is there supposed to be someone standing inside your house behind you right now?"